Okay, so let me just bring up this chart and we can kickstart the session. Okay, so we have requests coming in, right? Gold, please. Yes, for sure, Further. Okay, yeah, so I'll take a look at gold as well. Yeah, so if you guys have any other requests, right, do put them there. Okay, so just a quick introduction of myself, right? I'm Lee Sing. So I provide FX advisory to institutional clients. You can also find me on LinkedIn. So just a quick disclaimer before we get the session started, right? The information presented here, it's not to be treated as investment advice. It's for educational purposes only. So this is the agenda that we will be covering for today, right? So as always, right, as with all our live sessions, we will first hop onto the economic calendar to take a look at what are the key events, right? So any upcoming news for the week, and following which we will take a look at our setups, right? So taking a look at how it played out and also what are the setups for this week. And at the same time, right, throughout the session, we will have our Q&A session open. So if you guys have any specific charts, right, so we have requests for gold. If you have any other requests for indices or whatnot, right, just put them under the tab. Okay, so let's take a look at the economic calendar for a start. So for the economic calendar, right, usually I alternate between Vantage Markets economic calendar or Forex Factory, so either or. So in this case, let me just bring up Forex Factory's economic calendar. So you can access this, just go to forexfactory.com, right? Let me just bring this up. And then under calendar, you should be able to see the key upcoming events for the week. Okay, so over here. So these are the upcoming events for the week. You can see that we have pound CPI data, right? So pound CPI data fell short of expectations. We had dollar CPI data due yesterday, right? So it actually went above market's expectation of 6.2%. So because of this, right, markets are also starting to price in an increase in the terminal rates for the rate hikes. So that's one. And then we have pound. And then coming up tonight, we also have core retail sales data. So this would measure whether there is resilience in the economy, right, despite this rising price pressures. There's also ECB President Lagarde's speech. And other key data would be Aussie's employment data, right? So mainly on jobs data as well as retail sales data for pound. So these are the upcoming economic data that we have, right? So key ones to watch. I would say that for today, the main ones would involve the dollar, right? So we'll be taking a look at dollars, dollar index. Okay, so yeah, so this is on the economic calendar end, right? So let's take a look at our setups for now, right? So for the setups, there are three main setups that I want to go through. So the setups would be let's take a look at dollar index for a start, right? So if you take a look at dollar index, okay, so let me just run through the key levels that we have highlighted previously, right? So with dollar index, if you take a look at the monthly picture, you can see that currently it's sitting on some kind of support level. So again, if you just draw a horizontal line across, you can see that this zone, essentially, even if I were to put it in a line chart, you can see how this area itself, right, if I were to draw a horizontal line across, this area is tested as a resistance and then as a support. You saw how price reacted here and then these two areas as well. So this sits a resistance turn support level, right? So this is on the picture on the monthly time frame. If you're on the weekly, you can see that currently where we are right now on the weekly, there isn't anything, right? Just a slight pullback. So we saw a pullback into this area. So nothing much too different from what we have on the monthly picture. If you're on the daily time frame, this is the daily, you can see that this is the first resistance area that we've highlighted previously, right? So this area itself, again, price came in, tested as a support twice over here before it failed. And then this area itself, it's also in line with the Fibonacci retracement. So just a quick recap on the Fibonacci retracement, right? Essentially, what we want to do in using Fibonacci retracement, identifying high and low points as starting and ending points. So if we want to use Fibonacci retracement to find resistance, right, we essentially need to identify the high, identify the low. And in this case, you can see that the 23.6 retracement lines up with the zone. So I've also mentioned in earlier sessions that you can find retracement levels at almost every interval. So it's important that you combine these retracement levels with graphical support resistance areas. So this is the resistance level that we have found, right, on the daily time frame. If you go down to the 4 hours, you can see that prices face some kind of resistance here, right? So it's consolidating at this area. And we also highlighted a support level here, again, based on horizontal levels. You saw how price reacted as a resistance broke above it. And right now it's sitting on it as a support. Again, if I were to switch it in line chart, right, draw a horizontal line across, you can see how prices reacted to these zones. So this is another area. And then once again, if you take a Fibonacci retracement of this move, right, this is the whole move up from low to high, you can see that this lines up with the 50%. So these two levels are still the same, right, didn't change. If you take a look at this recent price movements, right, so this consolidation, recall we talk about order flow. So the concept of strong highs, strong lows, weak highs, and weak lows. So in an uptrend, right, the highs are not to be violated. So you can see that highs would usually hold. So putting your stop loss below a market structure itself, right, would be all right. But then in a downtrend, this is when the highs would hold. So you can see that highs are usually not violated. In a ranging market, you can see support resistance levels being followed. So you can see this area, right? Essentially, there's a support level here. There's a resistance level. Prices are trading within the range. So this is the last structure that we have on the 4 hours time frame. Right, so this is the low. So I mark out this low. Right, so if price comes into an area, if it comes into a resistance area here, right, so this is on the 4 hours. So if we go down to the 30 minutes, you can see that there's a very clear structure being formed. There's low, price came in from a new low. This is the last high. Right, so if you take a look at how prices are reacting here, you can see that this is the last low. So price push into this support area. Let me remove this markings, right? So all these drawings go to the 30 minutes. So on the 30 minutes, essentially what we have is that we have this low. You can see that there is a support level over here, right? So price came in, you saw this high, pushed right into the support level, tested the support level, it wicked below. So this is what we can consider liquidity sweep, right? So essentially price wicked slightly below the support area before we saw the strong rejection of the support. We saw a strong rejection of the support level, and then prices are continuing higher here. So when price breaks below this area but fail to break below the support, right? So it just wick below the support area and continue much higher. What this tells you is that this high itself, right? This high itself would be a potential target. The reason for that is because the high failed to break this low, right? So this high itself, it's not it's a potential profit target. Okay, so which is why when price comes into this zone, right, the next thing we want to do, right, with this idea in mind is that we try and find support levels that can support this concept or this bias. So the most immediate support level, right, so you see that prices are pulling back right now, coming into a potential resistance area, right? So again, if price comes into resistance area, we have to use the same assumption, right? So when price comes into resistance area, if your smaller time frame starts showing that supply or resistance areas are starting to hold, then what this shows you is that this support itself, it's weak, right? And it's weak because this support fails to break the high, so it's a potential target. So when we know this confirmation would come in, right, it depends on the smaller time frame. So for now, right, let's put that on hold first, right? So let's focus on what we have here. So right now we can see that prices are climbing higher. It's pushing into a resistance area here, right? So you can see this strong push up and then a rejection. So this is the resistance area that we have. You can see prices coming into this zone, right? So take a look at this recent price movement here. So in terms of the support level, you can see that this is the most immediate support level. So how so? You saw how price tested as a resistance and then as a support, right? And if I were to put it in a line chart, you see the same thing as well. So price testing as a resistance and then failing to break above it and then sitting on this level as a support. So this is the most immediate support region, right? Which means that if we were to see this higher time frame, this resistance level, this picture, if we were to see this resistance hold, we need price to first break below the smaller time frame support. So once we have this, right, what you can also check, right, apart from just looking at graphical levels, is to check if there are any Fibonacci retracement levels that line up here. So for Fibonacci retracement, right, we want to take the most immediate move. So the last move, which is this area, and then the pullback. This move itself is okay as well, right? But I try to take ones that are most direct. So if you take from here to here, the low to high, you can see that there's this whole point where prices did not respect this trend line. So this would be the move and pullback for me, right? So this is the lowest point, this is the highest point. So let's take the Fibonacci retracement and see if there are any levels that line up here. So when you take a Fibonacci retracement of this move, right, you can see that the 50%, I'll put this in a different color, the one in blue. So 50% retracement lines up with this for support level. Okay, so this is the resistance zone, right? I'll just remove this specific line. The reason we drew this line here, right, it's basically just to show that just based on a graphical level, you can see that if you draw a horizontal line across, right, this is the resistance level. If we switch it to weekly, you can see if you draw a horizontal line across, this area is respected as both a support and resistance. Okay, so this is more for visual purposes, but right now, right, as always, when we deal with zones, we try not to take a look at a specific area, try and take a look at an area instead. So in this case, right, let me just remove this. So we have the weekly zone being highlighted, right? Let me go back to the 30 minutes. So this is the area that we are currently in, right? So we have a higher time frame potential weekly resistance in this area, right? But whether there's a confirmation of this resistance and if it's going to hold, right, depends on the smaller time frame. So if we see that support levels are starting to fail, then in this case, it shows that the higher time frame resistance is being respected, and more importantly, the low itself failed to break the high, hence it's a potential target. So it's in line with the higher time frames order flow. Okay, so this is on dollar index, right? So right now the support level for me is here, the most immediate level. We're coming into a resistance area, you can see this high, but this high itself would not be considered just based on graphical area, right? You can see this graphical resistance. But personally, right, until price comes in and there's a smaller time frame change in structure, you can see that right now, if you mark out the successive higher highs and higher lows, it's still forming higher highs and higher lows, right? Even if I were to put it in a line chart, right, just mark out the significant reversal points, you can see that it's still forming this pullback leg itself. It's still forming higher lows and higher highs, so there's no signs of reversals yet. So if we were to take it, if we want price to respect this higher time frame resistance, right, there must be some kind of reversal being shown on your smaller time frame first. Okay, so for me right now on dollar index, this is the most immediate support level. Prices are also holding above the Ichimoku cloud. This is the resistance level to watch, but I won't take any shots from here, right? So unless there is a change in structure, for me, this is still bullish. Okay, so this is on dollar index, right? So with that, let's take a look at euro dollar. And also to be slightly more careful because tonight we have US retail sales data coming up. Okay, so let's take a look at euro dollar first on the higher time frame, right? So once again, on the higher time frame first, you can see that this zone itself, right, we've marked out the higher time frame support resistance area. I believe this is on the monthly, right? So this picture here, right? So this is the support level, this is the resistance level, and we've marked out the zones as well, right? So based on the weekly picture, you can see again the resistance level. The reason why we highlighted this zone is because if you're to put this area here, you can see how price divides this chart neatly across as both, right? If you take a look at how price reacted here, you can see the price tested it as both a support and resistance level, right? And then this area itself is the resistance turn support level, right? So price tested this region. You saw a hesitation here. So price basically tested this area, pushed up, reversed below before it broke above it. So for those of you guys who are familiar with supply and demand areas, right? So if resistance fails, it becomes a support and vice versa. So in this case, you can see that if it were to take a demand area based on the last candle we have, then it will be this zone, essentially this candle. Okay, so this is the demand on the weekly picture. Let's go to the daily. So on the daily, right, we don't have anything much that's different from what we saw on the weekly, right? So prices are right now consolidating, reaching this region, right? So prices are just moving sideways here. So right now, the most immediate area, right? So if I were to remove this higher time frame levels, right? So you take a look at the most immediate levels, which is basically here. So we've highlighted this previously, right? So before I remove that, right, just to summarize what we have highlighted last week, right? So you can see this region, right? So prices are pulling back here, right? So right now we have this zone, right? So this basically this resistance and support area that we saw earlier. So you can see that this area itself, right? We did 2 Fibonacci retracements from here. We took one from the low to high. This is the 23.6. right? So this was done. And then there was another one, right, which we saw this immediate break and a pullback. And right now prices are sitting on a 61.8 retracement. There is also some kind of resistance turn support level here. If you take a look at it in line chart, you can see it as well, right? Price coming in, tested this resistance twice and then broke above it. And right now it's sitting on this zone again. So this for me is the region, right? So on the 4 hours, you can see right now where we are. Okay, so on the 4 hours, this area itself, you can see this zone, right? So this was the last 4 hour structure. This is the last high. Okay, so last week, I believe this was on the 1 hour picture. Last week on the 1 hour, this was the high, right? So price broke above it, wick above this, and then continued much lower. So if you take this as a break of structure, right, this probably would have not played out. So price broke above it, right, close, and then continued much lower here. So if you take a look at the 4 hours picture right now, right, 4 hours, 1 hour is the same, right? So in terms of the high, you can see that this is the last high that we have, this high here. So price broke above it, but you can see that this was a wick and also a wick off the zone, right? So price wick above this area, you have a range that's basically forming here. There is this support resistance area, right? Price moving sideways within this zone itself, right? So again, this is the last structure that's being formed. So you can see that this is the last low. This is the high. We're currently pulling back into this area here. Okay, so this is the picture on the 4 hours time frame. If you take a look at the most recent leg, so this itself, right? If I'm on the 1 hour, let's go to the 1 hour so it's easier to see. So you can see here, right? What we have currently, it's price pushed up, failed to wick above, right? And right now we're seeing a pullback into this zone. So what we can see on the smaller time frame, right? So if price comes into this area again, right? The idea is that if it comes into this area, tested a demand area over here, and you see that smaller time frame, right? There's a change in structure. What this shows you is that this is the high, right? So if demand starts gaining control here, this high itself, it's a potential target. So we can play long positions targeting this high. Okay, but if not, where we are right now, you can see that prices are still forming lower lows and lower highs. So likewise, right, if it comes into a demand area, we're not taking immediate positions, right? We want to see if there's a change in structure on the smaller time frame first. If not, right, you can see that this region itself, this is the low. This low failed to take out the high, right? So right now, supply is in control, and this low itself is a potential target. So price can easily come back into this region, right? Wick below this low. So that's the picture on euro dollar right now. Right, so this is the range that we are in, right? So basically between the 1.0780 level as well as 1.0680 level. So around this range. If you're waiting for a breakout, right, a breakout of this range itself, right? This is the last range. So if price breaks above this region, right, there's room for more upside. If not, if it breaks below this zone, you can see this area over here, right? I think we could see a bigger push down. Okay, so this is the picture on euro dollar right now where we are currently. If you're on the 4 hours and 1 hour, right, this is the higher time frame support, right? But if you take a look at just recent price development here, if I were to put it in candlestick line chart, right, take a look at the subsequent highs and lows. You can see that on this pullback leg itself, right, it's still bearish. Prices are still forming your lower lows, lower highs. Right, so unless there is a change in market structure, this is the last high that took out the low, right? So unless price breaks above this, if not, right, we could see more continuation to the downside. Okay, so this is the picture for me on euro dollar. Right, let's take a look at Aussie dollar, right? Or let's take a look at gold first before we take a look at Aussie dollar. Okay, so this was the picture on gold previously, right? So gold pushed down very nicely. Okay, but failed to touch this resistance area. So this was the call previously. So if you take a look at it again on the higher time frame, right? So higher time frame first, the first area we have, right, resistance level over here. So if you take a look at it in terms of candlestick patterns or support resistance, right, if you put it in line chart, you can see that there is this horizontal level that acts as a resistance. So price came into this zone. This is the picture on the monthly. If you go down to the weekly time frame, you can see this area, right? So essentially nothing much on the weekly that's too different. We did highlight the support region, right? So this area here, you can see tested as a resistance and support. Again, if I were to just draw a horizontal line across. So you can see this zone, right? So if you put it in again, even in close, you can see pretty much the same thing. So price testing this zone here. And so this is the picture on the weekly. If you go to the daily time frame, you can see that there is this graphical level we've highlighted. Again, resistance turn support level. The reason why we highlighted this level is because price consolidated around this zone. multiple times. And then what we saw after is a break and close above this, a retest of this as a support before it continues to the upside. So this was the support. This was the support area we highlighted, right? And what we also did with this is that we've try and find if there are any Fibonacci retracement that lines up with this area. So this is the push up, this is the pullback. So Fibonacci retracement taking this low and this high, right? So low to high. On the pullback itself, you can see the 38.2%, right? It's in line with this area. So this was the picture on the daily, right? And if you're on the 4 hours time frame, right? So this was where we highlighted the resistance previously, right? So this one played out nicely, but this wouldn't have hit the entry. So we got the direction right, but it didn't actually push up into the entry. So in this case, you can see that this zone itself, right, we highlighted this area. Why? Because again, how price reacted here, support and resistance level. You put it in close, you can see pretty much the same thing as well, right? Strong rejection of these 2 points. So when price breaks below this area, right, this was the resistance level, right? The resistance level for this zone. So back when we saw the chart previously on Go, I believe we're somewhere here. Right, so we highlighted this resistance area, did a Fibonacci retracement as well, highlighted this zone as 38.2. So right now, right, this 38.2%, you can see this was taken from this high to low, right? So just a quick recap on Fibonacci, right? So this is the point that was taken. This is the high, this is the low. Now this price currently, right, prices are way lower than where we did our Fibonacci when we saw price, right? So which means that this area is not valid. This Fibonacci retracement is not valid, right? If we want to take a valid Fibonacci retracement, your ending point must now be at the new low. Okay, so just something to keep in mind, right? If you are using Fibonacci retracement in your analysis, right, you need to determine when it's the retracement level valid or not valid, and when you need to change the point. So this is now the new lowest point, so I'll change it here. But the zone still stays the same, right? Which is why when you want to use Fibonacci retracement, try to find areas that are in line with the zone, because at almost every interval, you will be able to see a retracement level. So this is the area, right? So you can see this zone over here, right? So back when we saw the chart previously, right, notice this zone. So we saw that there was this climb up, right? So prices were pulling back into this resistance area. There's this high lows and higher highs being formed. If you put it in close, you can see you mark out this highs and lows, right? So the point is to wait for a break below the structure. So price coming into this region, a break below the structure, before it signals a change in the direction of the trend, right? So in this case, you can see that the break in the structure would come as this in this area, right? So the higher time frame, it's more bearish. The picture on the higher time frame is more bearish. So you can see that price did not come into resistance area here, right? Didn't come into a resistance area here. But what we have over here, it's again, right, a break in structure. The last break in structure is this zone. So this is the last, you can see this is the last low. So if I were to mark this out, this is the low. This is the high, right? So the low broke above the high. So again, if the uptrend is to continue, price should continue forming higher lows and higher highs, pulling into this zone. But what we have over here is that you can see that the confirmation is that when price breaks below this low itself broke the previous high, right? So as long as the uptrend was to continue, this low itself shouldn't be violated. So you can see that this low, it's the last low. It's also the low where when price broke below this area, right? It serves as the new support and resistance level. So you can see this area here, right? So this zone essentially. So you can see that this, again, if I were to put it in close, you can see that this is the last low, right? This area, this zone here, right? So if price were to continue to the upside, it will continue to form your higher lows and higher highs. But once there's a break below the structure, right, that caused the break of this last high itself, then this becomes a resistance area, right? So support and resistance area. So this zone over here, and right now prices are testing this support, this area, the support zone that we have. Right, so currently, right, this is where we are right now, right? So let me clear this analysis, right? This is just interesting to note because you can see that this structure itself, right, happens across different time frames. So one way you can actually do this, right, is just identify your higher time frame first. So if you take a look at your 4 hours, for example, right, there's a break in structure. This is your last structure. Price broke below the low, right? So on the 4 hours, it's more bearish. So any pullback itself into a resistance area, right, would continue, right? It's a potential short. So either you wait for a pullback into a resistance area or you wait for the change in structure on the smaller time frame. So in this example, right, price didn't actually pull back into this resistance area itself, but there is a change in structure on your 4 hours, right? So you can see subsequent higher lows and higher highs and a break of the last low, and then the support and resistance level before it continues to the downside. So right now where we are, right, this is currently the support level on the 4 hours. You can see this area here. So again, right, how we got this area, there's a resistance level, price tested as resistance, broke and retested as support, and right now it's coming into this region. So again, right, how do we know whether the support level is going to be respected? Right, coming into this region, you see that this area itself, right, if this is on the 4 hours, if I were to go to the 1 hour or 30 minutes, you can see again, right, the latest market structure, lower lows and lower highs again, right? If I were to put it in a 1 hour, right, just mark out the significant swing points, the highs, right? And then I'll mark out the lows in a different color. Let's put the lows in red. Right, and this is a high, so this should be in blue. Right, so if you take a look at the highs and lows, right, I've marked them out in different colors. You can see that again, right, lower lows and lower highs being formed, subsequent lower lows and lower highs, right? So right now, in terms of where we are, right, prices can still continue to the downside. Okay, so this is important to note is that when price comes into this zone, right, what you want to see ideally is again, right, price, this is the next last resistance area. So price will come into this region, form your new structure. And when there is a new low that's being formed, right, if the low itself, or rather when the high fail to take out this low, right, then this is a sign that there is a potential change in structure on your smaller time frame. Okay, but where we are right now is still bearish, right? So the most immediate resistance level over here would actually be this zone. You can see on the 30 minutes time frame, right? This is the last support and resistance level. So to just draw a horizontal line across, you can see how price divides this area neatly. And so this is the last support and resistance level here. You can see how price tested these zones. And then right now we're seeing a break of this area. So the last support and resistance level, what you can do with this, again, right? Try and see if there are any Fibonacci retracement levels that line up here. This is the push and this is the pullback. So what you can do, Fibonacci retracement from high to low, this move. Right, so again, you want to open up this key level. So in this case, the 50% retracement lines up nicely with this area. Okay, so this is the zone that we have, right? I think we could see a reversal from here. So if price comes into this area again, right, pulling back into this area on your smaller time frame, you'll see higher lows and higher highs. So if we want a confirmation, just go down to the smaller time frame, right? If we're on the 1 hour, you can go down to the 15 minutes or the 5 minutes just to check when price pulls back into this zone, right? Is there a change in structure? If not, right, price could continue on the upside. So every time there is a reversal, right, if price acknowledges a zone, you'll first see that reversal happen on either the 5 minutes or the 15 minutes, basically the smaller time frame, right, given the fractal nature of markets. So this is the most immediate resistance level, right? So even if we're on a higher time frame support, you need some kind of structure to be formed first so that we can then reason out that if this high itself, right, fails to break below the last low, then this high, it's a weak high and we can play longs, right, targeting the high. And this will be in line with the higher time frames order flow. Okay, so this is the picture for me on gold. Right, let's take a look at the last setup, which is on Aussie dollar, right? And if you guys have any other setups, right, do put them under the chat. So let's take a look at, again, Aussie dollar on the higher time frame first, right? So if you take a look at it on the higher time frame, so this one actually played out very nicely. So on the higher time frame, the monthly picture, you can see that it's sitting on some kind of support and resistance area here, right? So this region, right? So again, right, if you put it in close, you can see that there's this basically this horizontal line that you can draw across that divides the chart very neatly. Okay, so this is on the monthly. If you go down to the weekly time frame, right? Let me just remove the rest of the markings. Okay, so if you go down to the weekly time frame, right? This is currently where we are right now. Oops. Okay, so on the weekly time frame, it's sitting on resistance. If you go to the daily, right, so not much difference here. On the daily time frame, we don't have too big of a difference, right? We highlighted the support area previously, this zone here, because of how price interacted, right? You can see again resistance, price broke, tested the resistance twice, here, before it broke above, right? So this is this support level, right? On the 4 hours time frame, right, on Aussie dollar, we highlighted this as a resistance level, and you can see this area, right? So this again, there's a break in structure. You see higher lows and higher highs, and then what we have following which is that price broke below this low, right? So for us, the direction is more bearish now. So once that happens, right, we are trying to find resistance areas to take the shots from. So in this case, you can see that this is the high, this is the low, this is the last leg, this is the pullback, right? So we highlighted this resistance area. So in this case, price actually came in very nicely into this zone. You can see price came in nicely and then it pushed down from there. So in this area, right, again, what we did, Fibonacci retracement, taking this high, using this low, right, high to low, you see the 61.8 retracement, which it's in line with this resistance area. We also have a extension level. So extension levels are basically zigzag patterns, right? So if you guys want in-depth analysis of extension, right, do take a look at the video on on YouTube, right? So we have the sessions recorded there. So this was the zigzag pattern and the 100% extension. So this is the picture on Aussie dollar. Right now for me, Aussie dollar is still more bearish, right? So where we are, right, it's not too different from where we currently are. So let me just remove all this, right? And then we start a fresh analysis. So this is still the same resistance level. We do have a support level here as well. So you can see that's currently within this range. So what we have for the structure, this is the low, this is the last high, right? So the same thing, right? So if price comes into this zone, right, if it comes into a support area over here, so the last support level that we have is actually this zone. So if you see that on the smaller time frame, right, support levels start gaining control. What this suggests is that we could have a long position, short-term long position targeting this high, right? If not, right now, if you go down to the 15 minutes or even the 30 minutes, you can see subsequent lower lows and lower highs being formed. So if there is a change in structure, right, you need first a clear high to be formed and price to break above this high before that it suggests more upside. Okay, so this is the picture on Aussie dollar, and then the last request we have, right, dollar yen. Okay, let's take a look at dollar yen. So again, from the higher time frame first. Right, let me just clear this analysis so that we can start afresh, right? So right now on dollar time frame, right? So previously we're bullish on this here. So again, right, let me just highlight this. So this area, right, so if you're on the monthly, you can see again resistance turn support area here, price pushing up and then breaking above this. Right now it's probably retesting this area. If we were to put it in close, right, draw a horizontal line across, you can pretty much see the same thing, resistance turn support level here. If you're on the weekly picture on dollar yen, you can see that currently prices are testing this support area, right? So for supply demand areas, I take a look at specific candles, right? So in this case, you can see that price came into the support zone. So this specific area here. So for this candles itself, right, what I look out for is that on this candles itself, right, I try and see if there are any areas where basically there was this strong rejection. So over here, you can see that price basically pushed up. This area, right, price pushed up, came back into this zone before it broke higher. And this is itself is a support level. So if we were to put it in close, right, you can see the same setup here. Right, so currently prices are testing this area and then it's rejecting off this zone. Right, so this is the picture on the daily. If you take a look at the daily picture, right, so you can see that this is the last high that we have, right? So take a look at how price came into this zone. So coming down into this area, you have subsequent higher lows and higher highs. Lower lows and lower highs, right? And then what we have following which is that you can see there's this change in structure here. So instead of continuing this lower lows and lower highs, right now you're seeing new highs being formed and subsequent lows being formed. So for me on dollar yen right now, it's more bullish. You can see over here. Right, so all these areas, just take a look at the most recent high and lows. Right, so you can see this is the zone. Right, so for me right now, it's more bullish. This is the picture on the daily time frame. So in terms of the bullish areas, right, or support levels that we can look at, if you highlight, so let me just remove all this, right, higher time frame picture. Let's focus on this portion of the chart. So this portion of the chart, where's the support level that we have, right? So it's an area where price respected both as a resistance and support, right? So when I draw a horizontal line across, you can see that we try and find areas that divide the chart neatly. So this area, you can see this horizontal line, right? So how price tested as both a support and resistance. So this for me is the most immediate support level. What we can do with this, right? We can take a Fibonacci retracement of this most recent move from low to high. So this is the low, this is the high, right? So low to high, and then check if there are any pullbacks. So in this case, when you take a Fibonacci retracement of this move from low to high, you can see that the 50% again, it's in line with this zone. So this gray zone that we have, see this support level, right? The gray zone. So this is one, right? So let's go down to the 4 hours picture. So on the 4 hours picture as well, you can see subsequent higher lows and higher highs that's being formed here. So what we have next, right, in terms of the 4 hours resistance, this is the most immediate 4 hours resistance level. It's coming into this resistance level. You can see this move itself. So as long as price holds above the support area for me, right, this area itself, we could see more upside. And this is the most immediate resistance to watch. Now this zone itself, right, you can see that right now, what we have here, support levels are starting to form and support levels are starting to hold. On the smaller time frame on the 4 hours, you can see the same thing happening, right? So price testing as a resistance, breaking above it, retesting as a support, continuing higher. You see the same thing as well, right? Resistance turn support level forming here as well. So in this case, you can see that given the basically what we have on the smaller time frame, right, will first be formed on, what we see on the bigger time frame, this bigger picture over here, right, you actually see it happen first on the smaller time frame. So, right, so for example here, you can see that the most immediate high or the first break in structure, it's when price broke above this high. You can see on the 4 hours, right, so price form a new low, price push into demand area here. And then what we have following which, right, so take a look at this most recent move. So we have this push up and then price coming into a demand area here. So if you take a look at supply demand candles, you can see that just based on supply demand areas, right, this zone, this is the demand area, right? So basically price came into a demand area here. When price comes into a demand area, right, how do we know whether this is going to continue, right? We wouldn't know, because price could always continue much lower. So when price comes into this zone, right, again, you want to go down to the smaller time frame and try and identify this change in structure. In this case, this is probably driven by news. There isn't any change in structure, right? Price just broke above it, but there wasn't a retest of this level. So the last high that we have that broke the low, you can see this is the last high. The last high, right? So price didn't actually retest at this level as a support, just broke above, probably driven by news as well. If it continues much higher. Okay, but the key point over here to note is that right now where we are currently, you can see that just based on graphical levels, we have a daily support, the prices are holding, and then currently you can see on the 4 hours it's also respecting the support zone. For me, the most immediate 4-hour support zone is at 131.80, right? So this area here. Again, if you were to take the recent move, this is the push up. Right, so if it, this is the push up. So you can take a retracement from here to this high, right? But if price continues higher, you will have to adjust the retracement. So from low to high, you can see this 61.8, or rather the 50% retracement in line with this zone. So this for me is the most immediate resistance area. But this zone itself, right? Again, if you're to take any shots from this zone, you have to ensure that the smaller time frame has a change in structure first. Because right now the direction on your daily and 4 hours is more bullish, right? With subsequent higher lows and higher highs being formed. So what this shows is that if price comes into this area, right, it could easily break above this. So if you want to take shots from here, right, try and wait for a smaller time frame confirmation in terms of a change in structure. If not, I think price could continue much higher. Okay, so this is the picture for me on dollar yen, right? I hope this is clear. Okay, so yeah, I see that we have no other questions, right? So if not, right, that's the session that we have for today. Right, so if you guys want to take a look at the recordings, you can actually go to vantagemarkets.com/webinars, right? So over there, we do have recordings of the previous sessions. And if you want more in-depth Fibonacci retracement sessions, right, we do go through that as well with examples on how we can apply them. So you can actually find that on Vantage YouTube's page. Okay, so yeah, with that, I think we have come to the end of the session, right? So I've answered all of your questions as well. So again, right, thanks to everyone for staying with us till the end as always, and for keeping the session interactive. And we have our educational series tomorrow, right, covering on Fibonacci extension. So you can sign up for that on Vantage website as well. Okay, so thank you and stay safe, trade safe, and we will catch you guys again tomorrow.